The lights inside the Good Morning America studio were brighter than usual that morning, or at least that's how it felt to Jennifer Lopez as she stepped through the glass doors. The familiar hum of cameras warming up, producers whispering into headsets, and assistants rushing with clipboards normally energized her. She had walked into hundreds of studios like this over the years, late-night shows, award stages, press junkets across the world. But this morning felt off. Jennifer adjusted her cream-colored blazer, smoothing an invisible crease, and took a slow breath. She had barely slept the night before. Not because of nerves, she didn't get nervous anymore, but because something had been weighing on her for weeks. Interviews had become less about her work and more about speculation. About her choices. About her personal life. And today, she was sitting across from Michael Strahan. Michael stood near the host's desk, laughing easily with the crew, tall and relaxed as always. America loved him for that, his charm, his warmth, his ability to ask tough questions without seeming confrontational. Jennifer respected him. She truly did. But respect didn't mean trust. 2 minutes, J-Lo, a producer called out cheerfully. Jennifer nodded and walked toward her seat. Michael turned, his smile widening when he saw her. Jennifer Lopez in the house, he said, opening his arms slightly. Always good to see you. Good to see you too, Michael, she replied, returning the smile, polite, controlled, professional. They exchanged brief pleasantries as the countdown began. The studio audience settled, the red lights blinked on, and suddenly they were live. Good morning, America. Michael boomed. Today we're joined by global superstar Jennifer Lopez, here to talk about her upcoming film, her music, and, well, everything else everyone's talking about. Jennifer laughed lightly at that last part, though something tightened in her chest. The first few minutes went smoothly. They discussed the film, her dedication to the role, the long nights on set, the emotional weight of the story. Jennifer spoke passionately, her hands moving as she described the character. This was her safe zone, the work, the craft. Then Michael glanced down at his cue cards. And Jennifer, he said, his tone still friendly, you've been very open over the years about reinvention, personally and professionally. A lot of fans are wondering, do you ever worry that the constant changes make people question your authenticity? The question landed heavier than it sounded. Jennifer's smile froze for half a second, just enough for the cameras to catch it. I think growth gets misunderstood, she replied carefully. People evolve. That doesn't mean they're not authentic. Michael nodded, but he didn't move on. Sure, he said, but some critics say the public versions of you, relationships, comebacks, rebrands, feel calculated. Almost like chapters written for headlines. The studio grew quiet. Jennifer felt heat rise in her face. She had answered questions like this before, but something about the phrasing, chapters written for headlines, cut deeper than usual. I don't live my life for headlines, she said, her voice firmer now. I live it as honestly as I can. Michael leaned back slightly, eyebrows raised. But when you choose to share so much, doesn't it invite that kind of scrutiny? There it was. Jennifer crossed her legs, her posture still poised but her jaw tightening. Sharing doesn't mean surrendering, she said. There's a difference between openness and entitlement. A producer off camera shifted nervously. Michael sensed the tension but pressed on, perhaps thinking he was steering into a meaningful conversation. Some fans say they miss the Jennifer who let the work speak louder than the narrative. Jennifer looked directly at him now. Which Jennifer is that, Michael? He hesitated. The one from earlier in your career. She nodded slowly. So you mean the younger one? The quieter one. The one who didn't have enough power to set boundaries. The audience murmured. Michael cleared his throat. I didn't mean it that way. But that's how it comes out, Jennifer replied, her voice calm but edged with steel. When a woman grows louder, more confident, suddenly she's calculated. When she sets terms, she's controlling. Michael tried to smile it off. Fair point. But do you think? No, Jennifer interrupted, surprising even herself. The interruption echoed louder than she expected. Michael blinked. No, she repeated. I don't think my life needs to be reduced to a theory every time I sit down to talk about my work. A silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. The producer's voice crackled urgently in Michael's earpiece, but he stayed focused. I hear you, he said, more carefully now. But as someone who's inspired millions, don't you feel a responsibility? Jennifer uncrossed her legs and leaned forward. My responsibility, she said, each word deliberate, is to my art, my family, and my truth. Not to feeding a narrative that keeps moving the goalposts for women. The audience applauded, tentative at first, then stronger. Michael nodded, clearly trying to regain control of the segment. All right, let's talk about the film again. But something had already shifted. Jennifer felt it in her chest, like a door slamming shut. Years of smiling through uncomfortable questions. Years of reframing disrespect as curiosity. Years of being expected to explain herself in ways men never had to. Michael glanced at the monitor, then back at her. There's a line in the movie about walking away when you're not being heard. Did that resonate with you personally? Jennifer stared at him. For a moment, the studio seemed to disappear. No cameras. No audience. Just the question, and everything behind it. Yes, she said quietly. More than you know. Michael opened his mouth to respond, but Jennifer was already reaching for the microphone clipped to her lapel. She removed it gently, placed it on the desk, and stood. Gasps rippled through the studio. Jennifer, Michael said, half rising from his chair. She smiled, soft, sad, resolute. I came here to talk about my work, she said. Not to defend my existence. And with that, Jennifer Lopez turned and walked off the Good Morning America set, live on air. Cameras scrambled. Producers shouted. Michael stood frozen, the nation watching as the screen quickly cut to commercial. Backstage, Jennifer's heart pounded, not with fear, but with clarity. For the first time in a long time, she hadn't stayed. And she had no idea what the world would do with that. The moment the studio doors closed behind Jennifer Lopez, the noise hit her all at once. Producers shouting. Assistants rushing. Phones vibrating endlessly on tables. Someone dropped a stack of papers, and no one bothered to pick them up. Jennifer kept walking. Her heels echoed down the hallway as if punctuating a decision that had been years in the making. Her publicist, Marissa, hurried after her, breathless. Jen, wait, please, let's just. Jennifer stopped and turned. I'm not angry, she said calmly. So don't talk to me like I am. Marissa froze. She had worked with Jennifer for over a decade and knew that tone. This wasn't a tantrum. This was resolve. We're trending, Marissa said carefully. Already. Jennifer nodded. Of course we are. Behind them, a producer from GMA emerged, face pale. Jennifer, can we talk? Off the record. She looked at him, eyes steady. Everything is on the record now. She walked into her dressing room and closed the door. For the first time since leaving the set, her hands trembled. Jennifer sat down slowly, breathing in, breathing out. The room smelled faintly of makeup and hairspray, comforting, familiar. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her wasn't shaken. She was tired. Tired of explaining strength as if it were aggression. Tired of being asked to soften herself so others could stay comfortable. Her phone buzzed again. Ben, you okay? Saw it live. She smiled faintly and typed back. Jennifer, I am now. Inside the studio. Back on set, Michael Strahan stood beside the desk, jacket unbuttoned, hands resting on the wood as producers spoke rapidly through his earpiece. Go to weather, someone hissed. Michael nodded and forced a professional smile as the broadcast resumed, but something in his expression had changed. This wasn't just an awkward moment. This was bigger. During the next break, he removed his mic and exhaled deeply. I didn't mean to push her like that, he said to no one in particular. One of the senior producers crossed his arms. Intent doesn't matter. Perception does. Michael looked toward the hallway Jennifer had disappeared down. I thought we were having an honest conversation. Maybe, the producer replied. But honest for who? That question stayed with him. The internet explodes. By the time Jennifer's SUV pulled away from the building, the story had already taken on a life of its own. Clips of the walk-off flooded social media. Lo humiliates GMA live. Jennifer Lopez refuses to answer simple question. Finally, a celebrity sets boundaries on morning TV. The divide was immediate and fierce. Some called her unprofessional. Others called her brave. Hashtags trended worldwide within an hour. Hashtag she walked out. Hashtag let her speak. Hashtag JLO was right. In her car, Jennifer watched none of it. She leaned her head back and closed her eyes. Turn your phone off, Marissa suggested gently. Jennifer shook her head. No, I want to feel this. Marissa studied her. Most people don't. Jennifer opened her eyes. That's the problem. Michael's long day. Michael Strahan had faced pressure before. Locker rooms, Super Bowls, live television mishaps, but this was different. By afternoon, executives were requesting explanations. Network statements were being drafted and redrafted. You should release something, a PR consultant advised. A clarification. Michael stared at his phone. Clarifying what? That I asked the question. That you didn't mean to offend her. He leaned back in his chair. I did offend her. The room went quiet. That's the truth, Michael continued. And pretending otherwise won't fix it. Late that evening, he watched the clip again. This time without sound. He noticed things he'd missed before, the way Jennifer's shoulders stiffened. The micro pause before her answers. The moment her eyes changed, not angry, but distant. She hadn't stormed off. She'd checked out. And then she'd chosen herself. Michael sighed. Jennifer breaks her silence. That night, Jennifer sat alone on her terrace, city lights stretching endlessly below. She opened her laptop and stared at a blank screen. Marissa had advised her to wait. To let the noise die down. Jennifer ignored that advice. She began to type. Not a statement. Not an apology. Not an explanation. A reflection. I've spent decades answering questions about who I am, who I love, how I change. Growth is not a performance. Boundaries are not disrespect. Walking away doesn't mean you're weak. Sometimes it means you finally listened to yourself. She read it once. Then she posted it. No hashtags. No mentions. Just truth. Within minutes, the response was overwhelming. Actors, musicians, athletes, journalists, women, and men, sharing stories of moments they wished they'd walked away but didn't. Jennifer felt something she hadn't expected. Relief. The call no one saw coming. The next morning, Jennifer's phone rang early. Unknown number. She answered. Jennifer, a familiar voice said. It's Michael. There was a pause. Hi, she replied. I won't take much of your time, he said. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Not for the conversation, but for not hearing you sooner. Jennifer closed her eyes. Thank you for calling, she said. That matters. I've been thinking, Michael continued, about how often we frame questions like challenges instead of invitations. She smiled softly. That's a good place to start. I hope one day we can talk again, he said. Off camera. Maybe, Jennifer replied. If it's a conversation, not a test. He chuckled lightly. Fair enough. When the call ended, Jennifer felt no victory. No triumph. Just peace. A shift in the air. In the days that followed, morning shows everywhere adjusted their tone, subtly, quietly. Questions softened. Conversations deepened. Producers began briefing hosts differently. Listen more. Push less. Jennifer returned to work, filming reshoots for her movie, laughing between takes, fully present. She didn't do another interview for weeks. And when she finally did, the first question was simple. How are you? She answered honestly. Better than I've been in a long time. Final moment. One evening, scrolling through messages, Jennifer paused on one from a young fan. I saw you walk away. I didn't know we were allowed to do that. Jennifer typed back. We always were. She put the phone down, looked out at the city, and smiled. Sometimes, the loudest statement isn't what you say on camera. It's knowing when to stand up and walk out.